Everyone, welcome to Market Insight for the week of January 29th through the first week of February, the beginning of February, February 2nd. All right, starting with our monthly chart as we usually do. Overall, we're bullish, as we've been talking about for weeks now. We've broke the prior all-time highs that were set back in December of 2021 and January of 2022. That's 48.08. We broke that this month, or started to break it last month, broke it this month. And now we're making new all-time highs. So overall, we're strong. But we're getting into the area of the monthly supply line, as we've been talking about now for a little bit. And since it's a monthly supply line, that resistance can be meaningful. So we want to be alert to this. And also note that we are nearing the end of the month. We've got another 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the month turns on Thursday, the 1st. So we have 3 more trading days left in January. And compared to last month, right, we can see, for example, we were, just from rallying up from the close of the prior month to here, and now assuming we close roughly in the same area that we're in, we're getting shortening of the thrust in the price bars, right, on the monthly chart. So as we obviously the monthly still has to close, we've got 3 more trading days, but just making the assumption that we're going to close roughly where we are, somewhere is around the area where we are. And so if it does do that, we've got some shortening of the thrust in the price bars. And not a surprise to see that as we're coming into resistance. Now let's take a look at the weekly chart. And we can see the weekly showing a little more detail here as price approaches that supply line. That's that heavy green line there. And notice how this past week's range has narrowed down, especially compared to the last few weeks, right? So there's some shortening of the thrust in the price bar, right? What I'm talking about here is the range on this bar, much less than the last few weeks. We had narrow range here, and that pulled the market down. Now we're getting a narrow range here. So there's some shortening of the thrust in the price bar. I noticed too that the volume was a little less than the prior couple of weeks, right? But not by very much. I would say that the volume was more or less sustained. And that would mean, therefore, that sellers are coming in and capping the market a little bit here, capping the top end of the market. And so this is kind of a form, if you will, of effort to go up, and the good effort to go up, and results not as great as you might expect, right? Because on basically the same amount of volume the prior 2 weeks, look at the distance that we made in the range on those bars. And again, we're almost the same amount of volume and not even half the size, about a third of the size of the range, just eyeballing it. So that's some effort to go up, similar to what we saw, but the result is not what we were expecting, right? So at this point on the weekly, we don't see heavy supply. So maybe this is more likely profit taking. And the close, gives a little bit more bullish tone to the market than, had we closed on the lows, right? So we're seeing some selling coming in as we approach resistance, as we would expect. Buyers are still present, and they close the market up near the highs, okay? So let's see what the daily is suggesting here. And the daily is interesting. The Monday opened last week here, pushing the market up a little bit higher after Friday's good solid day up, and we close up above the then all-time high resistance, right? And so Monday opened up and we rally up and held a higher low, a higher high, and a higher close. And it did so on relatively light volume. So no real presence of sellers there. The only thing is that the range was narrowed, and Tuesday was almost inside of Monday's narrow range bar, and the volume was even a little lighter. And I was thinking, oh, break of the lows here on Monday or Tuesday, and we're likely to come back down and retest the vertical acceleration over here of last Friday, maybe even to last Thursday, right? Prior Thursday or Friday. So, but what happens? Wednesday, buyers come in and they press the market up. Now, sellers also came in and they closed the market, they closed the day well off of the highs. And we saw a pickup in overall volume. And compared to Monday and Tuesday, for sure, right? Monday and Tuesday both were kind of lower volume days. And then Wednesday, we see that pickup in volume. So again, I was thinking, reaction. We ought to be anticipating a reaction here. But next day on Thursday, buyers persisted to hold the market up and push the close back on up. Now the volume and the inside range being, the range being inside Wednesday, right now, talking about Thursday here, we get pickup in volume or sustained volume, and the range is inside Wednesday's range. So that suggests a fair amount of activity. And so selling remains present here. As we're trying to push up, we see that we still have narrow range and we're inside, even though there's some volume there. Though the close was positive. And then Friday, we see we make a higher low and new all-time intraday high to 49.34 1/4, a point over the Wednesday's high, but we close mid-range. And so what's going on here? Are we seeing supply gradually coming in, or are the buyers absorbing the supply to take price higher? Well, it's always tricky trying to diagnose supply versus absorption, which is what we're trying to identify here. But one thing to note, that the last 2 days here have traded and closed basically within Wednesday's range. On Friday, we did go a point outside of it. So it's not quite this little pattern here of 2 inside days, but it's close enough to note that this is the activity here. The market's been coiling for a couple of days, and it's likely getting ready to move out of this little trading range here one way or the other. So Wednesday's low and Friday's high are the key levels to watch early this coming week. A close above or below will likely set the tone for the rest of the week. Now, overhead resistance around 49.50, kind of a round number there, and then a little bit higher up here around 49.85. That's roughly this supply line area, the monthly supply line area. And I think we'd be overbought up there if we got up there, especially if we got up there this week. And support then around Wednesday's low, and then that's around 48.89. And then if we start trading down to the downside, the obvious support then comes down to around 48.40 level in there. And that would be, retesting that would be a backup to the edge of the creek after this sign of strength and retesting this vertical acceleration area in here. So in this situation, we're looking at absorption here and trying to figure that out. But in this situation, like many market situations, the 240 can be really useful here. So let's just turn to that for a moment. And you can see how Thursday and Friday traded inside Wednesday. Here's Wednesday's bar, and then Thursday and Friday traded inside of that. So we can frame that trading range out. And when we do, we see that supply on Wednesday and again on Tuesday. We see that supply on Wednesday and again on Tuesday. But buying held up, right, on both of those days and pushed the market up. Now, look at Friday. This is kind of interesting. We see less demand up there. Compare these green bars here, if you will, with the green bars on Thursday, right? we see there was certainly some supply that came in, but the buying was fairly strong there, both in terms of the volume and the closes and the spreads. Now compare the buying on Friday. We come up to the high of Thursday and the high of Wednesday, can't hold those highs. Didn't see quite as much volume coming in, but the buying just doesn't show me that great of a response, right? So buyers seem to be in a comparatively poor position compared to where they were on Thursday. So it looks like the week might have ended with some supply a little more in control than the buying. And if that's true, then we might see a push down back to Wednesday's low and maybe even down to Tuesday, Monday's low down in here. So that would be the key thing here. And obviously, if we start breaking down below there that the supply is taken over, then we would be coming back into that 48.40 area. And you can see this is where the demand started to come in stronger. So for a test of that. And we'll see if these levels hold, but or if the market wants to go lower, whatever. But in any event, the 240-minute chart lays out the structure pretty nicely and the key levels of support and resistance pretty nicely. Makes it obvious for us, right? And that's always helpful when we can keep things simple and when we can keep things more or less obvious. And a quick look at the major indices. Everyone's bullish here with the Dow lagging a little bit behind, the NASDAQ being the strongest here. And everybody's got clear levels of support. So that, we'd have to see things breaking down quite a bit before we would be thinking about bearishness in this market, or in these markets, I should say. And for this coming week, we have deep practice on Thursday, the first day of February. So we'll see how all this plays out on Thursday night. Have a good remaining time on the weekend and a great trading week next week. And I'll see you all on Thursday. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.